Squantum. That's Squanto's real name in Algonquin. Squantum. He's the Indian. I still say Indian as in Indian gaming. He's the man. He identified as male. He's the person who helped out the pilgrims, Squanto, from Squantum. The sort of name change can be forgiven. Algonquin rivals ancient Elamite for its opaqueness. Nquitpausuckowashawmen. No, not glossolalia, speaking in tongues. That's how Squanto would have said, quote, "There are 100 of us." One word. Tashuckqunne, cummauchenaumiz. That's, "How long have you been sick?" 2 words. It is a tough language. Of course, Squanto could have numbered his tribe, the Patuxets, in several languages, in English and in Spanish. Alas, there were not 100 Patuxets left to count. All had perished to smallpox. He alone survived, like some servant of Job, as indeed he was to the hard-pressed pilgrims. As for how long Squanto was sick, sudden fever took him the year after he had settled with his new tribe, the Pilgrims. He must have been used to being snatched away. He wasn't kidnapped just once, you understand. In 1605, one George Weymouth whisked him away to England. Whether kidnapped or volunteered, history does not record. For untold years he labored, well, 8 or 9 years, until returning to America in 1613 as translator for none other than John Smith, Pocahontas. Set free as a reward for his service, Squanto returned to his own tribe, only to be enslaved and taken to Spain, kidnapped in 1614 by Thomas Hunt, a lieutenant of Captain Smith. He escaped to London, where he remained until 1619, interrupted by one odd intermission in Newfoundland. From London he joined an expedition to America. There he found his family and tribe all wiped out. Providence to find an English-speaking Indian wandering the coast at just the right time to save the pilgrims? Well, yes. But how many other Squantos have wandered the earth, who never found their mission? Jonahs, who made it to Tarshish and never got to Nineveh. To know your purpose is something to be thankful about, father, mother, friend, and to bring light and love not only to those you care about, but to the stranger? Well, this is something in which we might make our own providence, the rest of it being kidnapped and orphaned and dying young and so on. We count such things as beyond our understanding and trust in providence to resolve. Much fiction will have crept into the story of Squanto and the Pilgrims, of course. It's not that it wasn't a good enough story on its own. It's just that the reality is complex, and myths have a happy simplicity to them. The tales of childhood are for inspiring us to emulate an example of excellence, since there are hardly any real examples of excellence. Or is that unworthy? It is a fact that having heroes who actually lived requires a degree of selective blindness on our part. We give importance to what is admirable and choose not to see the flaws, or at least to downgrade them. So all that stupidity and ignorance and immaturity about statues and so on, there actually are, well, fools, or ignoramuses, or moral degenerates who hate Abraham Lincoln. I'd call it unbelievable, but, well, transgender. Anything is believable. This forgiveness for history's great figures, it is as it should be. If we saw the chamber of horrors that is the heart of every human being, we'd never stop screaming. So we have myths. Is America everything it might be, or that we wish it were? Well, if there is an America still, the question would answer itself. The same thing is true for any ideal. There are no ideals. If they were real, they'd be examples, not ideals. But part of living in the real world is understanding that it is hopelessly flawed. Well, not hopelessly, fatally. Even in the jaws of the inevitable fatality of our biology, however, in the face of ultimate metabolic failure, we need not be hopeless. And so we have Thanksgiving. It has its own mythology, as does Christmas, but for all that there is the fiction of Santa, there is the reality of Jesus. And for all that sentimental images may very well be nothing but a happy conceit, of convivial Indians supping in sumptuous abundance with the dour wayfarers from across the gray waves of the churning seas. Yet myths have the reality of vivid dreams that might be true, for all that sunlight says otherwise. The dearest hopes of our hearts have no guarantee of coming to pass. Every prayer of thanks must include a prayer of abject supplication, begging God that evil or greater evil should not strike us. Job. Thus, as a nation, we take a day, a single day collectively, to call to mind the many blessings with which we have been blessed. We recall that it need not be so. We understand that who looks for perfection is a fool. We understand that who accepts the inspiration of a myth honors the daylight that the visions of night have promised.